the fact? Just stay tuned.
The Alan Cox Show.
On 100.7 double.
Couple of times, yeah, here and there.
But nobody I would really remember.
I think you would, yeah. I mean, they have a lot of music, so every song you hear, it's probably the first time you're hearing it.
Not Skinner.
Not Skinnerd is correct. It is not Skinnerd. The guy singing's name is Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Houses of the Holy. I'm playing it because it came out 50 years ago today.
Jeez.
Title song to the album, Houses of the Holy, some of the best known and loved songs from Led Zeppelin. We're on this. This is their
He
fifth
was right
album.
there.
He was right. It is not Skinnerd. So he did get that correct.
And it's not Steely Dan, but he thought it was.
Song remains the same in the Ocean and North Quarter, and yeah, so many great songs on this. But yeah, 50 years ago today, they dropped Houses of the Holy. Jimmy Page produced it. They recorded it at Mick Jagger's English country house. You know, if you're English and you're famous and rich, you need to have a country house. You need to have a place you can go out and just the countryside, maybe perhaps by the sea.
I want one.
And
That'd be cool.
You have a home by the sea.
No, but I don't have a country house.
Phil Collins did too. Yeah. You don't have a country house.
I don't have a country
You get one out there in Stark County, or what qualifies as the countryside? I
Dude,
mean,
Brian's ex-wife is looking to buy in Columbia Station. And I was
God,
like,
we had a landlord that lived out there.
that
and,
is
like,
that
it's
is the
out there, boy.
countryside.
Yeah,
I told
it
her, I was
is.
like, yo, there's not, because they're in Avon Lake right now. And
Well, although I will say there's more in Columbia Station now than there used to be. I mean,
sure.
It was a decade ago we were going out there. When we would go out of town, our landlords at the time were kind enough to watch Juno, and so we would drop her off before we'd fly to town. But
she probably loved it.
she
room
oh
to
my God, yeah, they were
run
running around chasing chickens, and that
Yeah.
was great. Yeah, but yeah, it's out there, boy.
Yeah, it's not close. And it's so funny because before this, Brian and I were tossing around the idea of moving to Avon Lake to be in the same, city to make custody and stuff easier. And then she's like, yeah, we're thinking about buying a Columbia Station. I was like, how do you even land on such a far away place?
Because I think they're developing out there.
Well, they
Wasn't
are.
there a football player just sold a big place out there? Some
was
guy
it-
that
Yeah, I
left
think-
the Browns
yeah.
was
it was the one
Odell
that
Beckham
caused,
Jr.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
causing all the problems. He had like a $2 million sneaker room or something like that.
Yeah.
Like an entire room that was a walk-in closet for shoes.
There you go. He was probably the black guy in Columbia Station.
No, anytime I look on Zillow, there's like everything says new construction. There's
Yeah.
like 30 new construction.
And
So they're
blowing it up
probably
out there.
yeah, putting up a couple
Developments
and
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Now, for those of you who live near there and you're saying, Alan, what are you talking about? It's right up the road. It's not out there. All right, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was where my cult church was growing up. We had a tiny little church with like maybe 30. It was like 6 huge families, maybe 30 members.
Church.
Yeah, it was
Is there
our
all those tiny church
there was
houses.
that's exactly what it was. It was this tiny little church
wood
house.
plank floors.
And it was like maybe 5, it was probably more than 5, but less than 10 families that attended this church. It was in North Eaton, Ohio. And yeah. I was like, how do I tell them that this is childhood trauma for me? And I can't exactly. I'm using that as an excuse, but.
Well, yeah, going to church is childhood trauma for every kid. It's
But I'm saying
yours
that
was-
area.
Yeah.
spark
The
some
location too. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's still people. There's got to still be people like that out there. I don't even know if the church is still there anymore. But it is
Probably a mega church right now. It probably
I was going to
blew
say
up.
those
It's
kinds of
probably
churches are
doing
much
record
bigger
numbers,
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took over old Montgomery Ward stores and Sears and things. And
There's that one when you're driving down the Canton that's just off the highway, and it's one of those giant mega churches that's like got 10,000 seats.
they got a cool hip
Bananas.
lowercase font.
When I was growing up, my church was in a strip mall.
Yeah.
That's how they started out.
Mhm.
The church don't got its own building. I feel like you at the wrong church. Like,
Well,
I
they-
mean, how you gonna believe and be like, you're renting in a strip mall
need
and
to
this is the
donate
Lord's
more.
church?
It was
I
in
don't
a
know
strip
about
mall,
this.
and then they built their own facility, and then now, I mean, they actually did really well. They have like a school there now.
At least the
so-
cult that I was in is like the richest cult
Yeah,
in
you
the
guys
entire
have billions
world.
of dollars.
Yeah, he had the big.
They're
up
getting in
us.
trouble because they have so much money.
Not my cult, babe.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I do remember, this is just a random church story. The one time our Sunday school teacher was so old. And she was old when I was like 7. So I don't know how old she actually was, but her name was Dobby. And the one time I forget what the overall message.
Dobby?
Dobby, D-O-B-B-Y, or
Like-
I-E, Dobby.
Like the elf?
Like,
Yeah, like I think Dobby. That's what I don't know what her real name was. We called her Dobby. But I don't remember what the lesson was of Sunday school that day, but it had to do with her dissolving Alka-Seltzer in water. So probably something about like when you take Jesus as your savior, he becomes part of you.
Your
or something.
body
I
is
don't know.
filthy and dirty, and you should never, ever have anything to do with it.
So we all had we're little,
You ever
like
heard of
7 or 8. We all
stomach
had
cake. Just have some Alka-Seltzer.
Well, we all had little cups of water, and she made us dissolve Alka-Seltzer in it and then drink it. And this was like cult level church where we weren't supposed to be taking any kind of medication. Like you're not supposed to be taking Advil. You're supposed to pray away all your diseases. And a bunch of the parents got really mad at her for feeding the kids Alka-Seltzer during Sunday school. It was like a big drama deal that Dobby gave everybody Alka-Seltzer.
That's
My
funny.
kids came home singing plop, flop, fizz, fizz. What the hell are you teaching them over there? Alan, what's Mary talking about? Columbia Station borders Berea and Strongsville.
I know, but it's like
It's out there, though.
It's out there. I worked at Columbia Hills Country Club, and I remember it being like rich hillbillies. You know what I mean? Like they owned construction companies and things like that. It was just like people who wanted their space. The first time I got drunk in a cornfield was in Columbia Station.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you were in the corn all weekend, weren't you?
Dude,
Weren't you in Iowa?
I was in Iowa. I went out to Iowa for a college gig on Saturday. And we went through the lineup last week where it was like this big.
You were following a hypnotist.
I was following a hypnotist, and it was this big event that they had like different rooms. You were playing dodgeball in one room. They were showing the movie Cars in another room. There was an arts and crafts station. I got there while the hypnotist was on because he was on from 8 to 9:30. I went on at 10, right? I get there at like 9 o'clock, and there are 500 kids in this auditorium, maybe more. They had set up 350 chairs, and there were people I sent you guys a video. There were people lined up all the way around this auditorium. And I was like, oh, this is actually going to be like a real show, like amazing.
A real show.
Right, because
Almost
these
like I'm a
college
real
gigs,
comedian.
right, these college gigs can be so brutal. After he got off stage, they're like, all right, come back in 10 minutes for the comedy show. I was like, what are you doing now? Like, don't
Come back in 10 minutes.
They wanted to clear the room out and so people could go get like a snack. Because remember, I went on at the same time as the Uncrustables that were being served. So, but
And you're never going to defeat Uncrustables.
I'll never win.
You could be Dave Chappelle, and Uncrustables would still be better.
It was me, Uncrustables, and the movie Cars all started at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm up against it.
At college, they're showing Cars.
Right. But I would say probably between 250 and 300 students came back in. So
that's
it was
that's good.
incredible. By far the best college gig I've ever had. And it was
And they
a
weren't like-
really good show.
And they weren't like, oh, bring back the
No,
hypnotist.
they
like, they were
loved
just
it.
like,
They had a
oh,
great
that's-
time.
Bring back the hypnotist.
Well, you could have put that in their head.
Well, I was going to say, that's what I asked you
Pay
last
the
week.
hypnotist more.
Do you think that the hypnotist might have paid it forward
Well,
and put a suggestion in everyone's head? Make sure you come back to this room.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen a hypnotist show, but it's very like, especially for college kids.
Very
I feel
interactive.
like college kids are the perfect age for it because it's like,
Yeah, how are you going to have a non-interactive hypnotist show?
well, yeah, but it's exciting and the people are acting all weird, so it's very funny. So everyone was like in a good mood, ready to laugh. So it was a great setup. It was an amazing show. And then yesterday I drove 8 hours to Oneonta, New York, which is the middle of nowhere.
I've been there, yeah.
I kept calling it Oneonta. It's Oneonta. Oneonta.
There's a SUNY Oneonta is up there.
That's
right?
the one I was at.
Yeah.
Yes. And I got there and it was like in the basement. And the one girl, when I checked in, I was like, hey, I'm here for a comedy show. She goes, I think that got canceled. I was like, I'll kill someone. I swear, if I've been awake and driving since 4:30 this morning, I
You
will
could have
end
hiked the
life.
Appalachian Trail. Doesn't it end up there?
9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, you could. Come
I think
on.
it got canceled. What type of?
I mean, she's 19,
Yeah, she
working
doesn't
at the
know.
student union.
That's
She
why
don't know
I
anything.
can't deal with.
It's just a
stuff
student
like
job. She's
Yeah.
not like a professional booker.
So she was like, I think it got canceled. If it's still going on, it's downstairs. And I was like, I swear. But I walked downstairs and I hear singing. And I was like, well, maybe it's like choir practice or something. And I look in this room and there's like a Jesus group meeting and they're all praising and worshiping. And it's like Fellowship of the Red Dragons because it's their mascot is the Red Dragon. So this is like their youth group on
It's a false
campus.
prophet. They can't do that.
Well, no, like that was like their like Red
college
Dragon youth group
organization,
or whatever, you know. They weren't praising the Red Dragon.
False
That's not
prophet.
what they were doing.
Yes.
But
Yeah, no Christians ever praise a false prophet.
not once.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh great. When this gets out, this is gonna be the Jesus kids are gonna come. But it ended up being like 50 kids last night too. And
Hey,
it
there
was
you
like
go.
a small room that they had round. It was set up kind of like a comedy club. Like they did a really good job. So I had back-to-back successful college gigs that
That's
I made
nice.
good
You
money.
needed a couple wins on
I
the
needed
college
some
gigs.
wins on the
Yeah.
college gigs big time. So it was really a great weekend for me. I've been up
You've been up since when?
4:30 this morning. I
Hey, me
drove
too.
straight in, went home, got changed, and come to work pretty much.
That's nuts.
Why is that nuts, Cody?
It's so early.
Yes. What do you mean? Why? Is
Just
that
depends on
nuts?
when you went to bed.
I went to bed about 10:30, 11.
I mean, you were getting up early in the initial days of Orange Theory, weren't you?
No.
not 4:30.
I thought he was going at like 5 o'clock classes or something.
He went to one
I went
early
to
one.
I went to 1:6:10 class, and it was because all the classes filled up, and I had to get my classes for the week. So I was like, I got to go to one. I'm no stranger to getting up early if I have to, but that was a fluke on my end. I forgot how quickly those fill up because everyone just wants to get into an Orange Theory fitness class.
God, I'll tell you what, 4:30 is great because like everyone's asleep. Like,
I will
the world's
say that.
asleep. It's so quiet and you get work done. Oh, it's
I
great.
cruised. I was doing like 85, not a single person on the road, barely even any truckers out. Like the first probably 4 hours of my drive today were smooth, nothing. And then I had to stop and pee and eat some breakfast. And then the second 4 hours, there was a lot more traffic. You're hitting like, rush hour and things like that. And then from Erie to Cleveland, that 90-mile stretch took the longest by far.
And-
I mean, that's the most populated part, but
It was crazy because the only time I've ever I wasn't working obviously, but I've gone on vacation out of the state, and the only time I've ever appeared on the show and was in a state earlier that morning was when we were in Charleston, and for whatever reason, I think it was the flight was cheaper from catching a flight from Myrtle Beach rather than Charleston, so we had to drive all the way up to Charleston that morning, or Myrtle Beach that morning, and we didn't anticipate having rush hour traffic, and we sat on a bridge for like an hour, and I was like, we're going to miss our flight, and there's no way we're going to make the show. Somehow, some way, we made it like with a half hour to spare, and I got to the show on time.
Awesome.
Well, that's good for you.
No,
You did it.
But it's just weird waking up in a different time zone, or not time
Welcome
zone,
to
but
my life,
different
dude.
state, and then having to go to work later that day. It was just
dude,
nuts.
I've
There's-
done that every time I'm in here with all my luggage, and I'm like, yeah, when I got back from Texas or South Carolina, I had
Yeah,
two
he's just saying it's
huge
weird.
bags.
It
So he
just
doesn't pay
feels
attention to
weird.
when you do it.
Oh,
I do pay attention, but I have never experienced that, so I can't really relate until
He's co-signing.
I wasn't
Yes.
working. I was on vacation, and it was nuts. So I can't imagine if I was like working. Usually I'd be like, oh, I'll just take the whole day off. Just want to relieve that stress, so I don't have to worry about it. But
I thought about it. When my alarm went off at 4 o'clock this morning, I was like, screw this, dude. I'm not doing it. I'm never leaving. Because it's an all-day commitment. Because it's like, well, if I don't get up and leave now to get home by noon or 12:30, and I wait, I sleep in, call off work, and leave at 11, and I'm home at 7 o'clock at night, like there's no winning. You wake your ass up and you do what you got to do, Cody.
Yeah,
so
hit the road when there's nobody
Everybody
driving.
give Mary credit for
Someone
getting
give me
up.
credit.
Yeah.
I have makeup on today. Do you understand what is
Makeup.
happening?
She woke
So
up.
wait, you got up
real
at
early.
4:30 and put makeup on?
No, I took a shower when I got home. I'm taking my little sister out for dinner for her birthday tonight.
oh, is she the big 30, right?
She's the big 30. She turned 30 on Saturday.
Dirty
Yeah.
30 Club. Welcome.
Alan, that is a huge, huge shame. I like hearing Mary cry over her bad gigs.
Oh, sorry. That sucks that you had fun doing what you love.
It does provide great content, though.
And trust me,
The gigs that go well are not as fun to talk about. But
I mean, that whole
Yeah.
segment took 6 minutes, and
Yeah.
me being like, it was amazing. Everything was great.
Well, like Bill said, you need a win, right?
Yeah.
yeah, you need a few.
Did you-
I mean, I've been doing college gigs with this same booker since, I did a couple in 2019, and then everything shut down, but for 2 straight years, and they've all been bad. Like, no joke, up until this weekend,
Yeah.
they've all been pretty terrible. So that was about time, I think.
Well, and the booker can't control that either.
No, not at all.
It's like, hey, here's somebody with money,
Right.
and they want a comedian. It's a college. You go, all right. Is it up the street? No. It's in Oneonta, New York.
Well, and because
cool.
it's in the middle of nowhere, my options were like fly into Albany, which I would have to change planes and it'd be a 5-hour flight anyway, rent a car and drive an hour and a half. So it's a 6.5-hour travel day anyway, or just drive that. It was like there were no easy options for this one, but it was good. It was really good.
Did you think that the hypnotist was full of crap, or did you
I
actually
can
believe-
never tell.
Okay.
There's the part of me, because of religious upbringing, that, I've seen people anointed with the Holy Ghost and speak in tongues. So I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, it's real. There's got to be a
That's what
realness
makes you think
to
it's
it.
real?
That's your control group?
Yes. There's got to be a realness to it. And there's like medical professionals who talk about hypnosis for weight loss and quitting smoking and things like that, like actual legitimate doctors that say you can access parts of your brain in those like hypnotic states or whatever. But do I think that the show is fully real? I think the kids are buying into it and they want to be a part of something. So I don't know where I land on hypnosis.
They're open to suggestion is what you're saying?
Yeah.
It was funny because I never got to participate in any of the activities when I was in college, but the hypnotist would come like every other year. They would bring or every other semester they would bring a hypnotist in, and there were kids that didn't really talk much and they weren't very smart, and they had them up there doing like math equations, and I'm like, I know this dude for sure is a dummy. And they're in there like, oh, skip every third number, and they would do it in sequence, like they would say it perfectly every time, and I'm like, wow, if that they didn't mess up, they didn't.
Why didn't
stutter.
you ever get up in there to try to see if you get hypnotized?
I wanted to know if it was real or fake because I was like, I'm no stranger to embarrassing myself, so I don't care if I get up there and BS. But I would raise my hand and other people would get picked. So I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, well maybe they already rehearsed this, so maybe it is rehearsed. But I'm like, there's no way you could do it without a flaw every
Right.
single time. So there might be something to it. There were people up there that I knew afterwards, and they were like, oh no, I was acting, but he would get people off the stage that he said would fall out of it, or it didn't work on them. So he would openly say like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I could see that you're playing." So he would get dismissed. But the people that stayed up there, they seem to be really convincing. So either they're really good actors.
Yeah, see,
or
that's
it
what I
worked.
couldn't tell either. Because it was also
I
like,
think you'd be able to tell.
well, I mean,
It's not like they got the drama club in there and put them
Bring
all
a
throughout
hypnotist
the.
in here.
Huh?
no, that's why I was like, I think it's real. I don't know.
Well, we'll bring somebody in here and we'll have them hypnotize Poundcake.
No,
There's
don't
like
do it to me.
10%. I was Googling it. It said like on Cleveland Clinic's website, it was like 10% of people are prone to hypnosis, that it doesn't work on the entire population.
Right, you got to be dim.
I don't know about that.
Eh.
I think it's something to do with your brain.
You
So-
don't think being dim has to do with your brain?
I think
it's gonna work on
She's
Mary.
dim.
Probably work on me. Listen. I just am here to tell you that speaking in tongues is real. Magicians are liars. Hypnosis, I don't know. Jury's
demonic.
still out.
That's her holy trinity right there. She
Right.
got it all figured out. I'm gonna get a hypnotist to come in here and
Do me
he's
and
gonna
Cody?
and do Poundcake.
okay.
No, why is it always got to be me? I don't want to.
It doesn't always have to be you, but this time it will be.
I got to run the cameras.
Why not? What are you afraid of?
I don't know.
I mean, I'll
Maybe
let them
unlock
try.
something.
I'll let them try. I do not think I could be hypnotized.
I bet I could.
Why don't we see if they can get Poundcake to stop smoking?
Yeah, there you go.
I think we should get them to see if they can get Poundcake to start smoking.
I don't think it works that way.
I'm being here like
That's
shallow.
I'll be
Hal.
impressed.
Well, I asked the guy because me and the hypnotist were on the same flight in and out of Iowa. There's only one airport with 2 gates at the Waterloo Regional Airport.
Waterloo.
But I was talking with him after when we were waiting on our flight out, and he was saying, because I asked him, I was like, I've had people who've talked about weight loss hypnosis or addiction hypnosis. And he was like, you can definitely do it. He goes, but at the end of the day, the person has to be ready to quit. So if they do it for smoking and they're not mentally ready to quit, then it's not going to work.
That's his escape hatch.
See, but my
it didn't
therapist-
work because they weren't ready to do it. They didn't really want to act like a chicken.
But to a certain degree,
They weren't committed to acting like a chicken.
My therapist has said that before too. Like,
Yeah,
when
but that's because you don't need hypnosis. If you're not ready, it's not going to work for you, irrespective of if you're being hypnotized.
Well, and that's exactly his point, is that you have to, because I was talking to my therapist earlier in the year and last year about gambling addiction, and he was saying how, like, you're very clearly not ready to quit yet. Like, it's so connected to your dad that you're not ready to quit. So until you're ready to quit, which is true of any addiction, until you hit bottom, it's not going to happen. And that's kind of like what the hypnotist was saying, where he's like, if you don't really want to quit smoking, I'll put you under, but nothing's going to happen. Like, I'll take your money if you want me to.
Poundcake's been hitting bottoms for a long time now. Let's see, get this guy in here and see what he can do for him.
Mary, I bet you $50 you're ready to quit.
Enough out of you.
Double or nothing. I'll take that action. All right, well, let me take a break here and see if we can hypnotize you with some amazing advertisements here on WMMS.
You want to go to Wendy's. Why did I come Dracula?
Hey, I want to buy a couch. All right, you can text 35192 and you can listen wherever